It's time for the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, answering your questions from the General's quarters every week, right here on Volquest.
Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com Mailbag Podcast, presented by Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies. That's Smoky Mountain Organics. Smoky Mountain Organics with 4 locations to serve you, 3 in Sevier County, 1 in Knoxville, right across from Trader Joe's at 8018 Kingston Pike. Also, you can shop online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. With Rob Lewis and Brent Hubbs, Austin Price. I'm Brent Hubbs. I'll get that right in just a second. Hope everybody's doing well on this Thursday. We jump into the mailbag questions, and we'll start out of the gates with here's the question on AP. I'm gonna rephrase it a little bit, but the question is, who's most likely to commit next? Any 4-stars who might get in the boat before Herring? I know how much you love those questions. I'm going to rephrase it this way. Where do you like that Tennessee sets with some guys? I know you said Caleb Herring's going to do something, you think, in April. Where do you think some other key names are in terms of a timetable for decisions that Tennessee at least is poised near the top with, or in the finalists right now? Give me 2 or 3 names you kind of like. And I don't mean immediate. I'm talking about this spring type, time frame here. Next,
Aiden Russell, Bryson Sanders, Caleb Herring. I think Tennessee, after this past weekend, has moved up the charts for Devin Hyatt. That's kind of where and I think they'll get a quarterback this spring. Is that Nico? Is that Vizzini? Is that? I don't think it's Dante Moore because he ain't been here. But the other 2 more realistic to me. So like as far as like this spring, when I'm talking March, April, May, like those all kind of stand out to me. And again, like having seen Ethan Davis, like Tennessee needs to really work hard to keep that kid because Hubbs, he's pretty.
Yeah,
he's long. Yeah. He's long.
Yeah, he definitely looks the part. He was one of the better looking guys that we had a chance to visit with and see surrounding Tennessee's Junior Day last Saturday. Update on Joe Crocker, and will we be at camps like the MPA camps, Tennessee Top 100, et cetera, to cover them? We'll be around the state. We'll be around other states all spring long, as we've done for years. Joe Crocker, where's Tennessee with Joe Crocker? Where's Joe Crocker with Tennessee?
I think Joe Crocker's down the list.
Okay.
As far as like in-state linemen, it would be Bussell, Sanders, Duncan, and then I think after that there's a significant drop-off with Crocker and Luke. I mean, I just don't think they're recruiting Luke Brown. I don't think they're recruiting the kid at Alcoa. And Crocker would be above those. Like he's somewhere between the top 3 and those other 3 I just named.
All right. UT Volunteers 16-18. Would it be within the rules for a university, either AD or actual athletic department or actual school, to donate to Spire or some similar NIL fund? I'm sure it would quickly become illegal, but is that technically legal now?
No, not for the university to. Now, I do think it's going to become more legal over time for Tennessee to encourage their donors, or Georgia to encourage their donors, or Alabama to encourage their donors. Hey, deal with this collective. And so I think you'll see that happen more and more over the next probably year or so.
Yeah, laws are being rewritten and new laws are being introduced at various states around the country, and that will continue, moving forward for sure. Sam Smith, 2233, wants to know, Rob, in your opinion, how will Rick and the team handle the trip to Texas? Do they make a big deal about it, or do you think they treat it as a regular road trip since Rick is going back to Texas?
Totally regular road trip. I mean, Rick, just about anybody that Rick worked with or anybody that fired him, or they've been gone for years. These kids that are playing now, most of them were in junior high when Rick coached in Texas. It's not a thing. It's not remotely a thing for the players.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and talking to Coach Barnes about it on Monday night at Ball Calls, that the commissioner, Greg Sankey, has asked him for the last few years as a part of the SEC Big 12 Challenge, how are you with playing Texas? Are you okay with playing Texas? You want to play Texas? Where is that? And Rick had kind of indicated to him he wasn't interested in going back to Texas right after he got to Tennessee those first few years. but because this is the last year in the facility that Texas is currently in, I think Rick felt like this was, if he was going to go back, it was could go back and one last time in that building. I'm sure Texas is going to have a bunch of former players there for him, and his grandkids will be there. It's a little bit different for Rick Barnes, but Rob, I'm with you. I don't think it has any effect on the players, and knowing Rick Barnes, it won't have any effect on this team and his preparations for Texas. But I'm sure it'll feel a little unique for him to be on the opposite sideline in that gym where he had so much success with that program.
Yeah, for Rick Barnes, it'll be a different kind of night. But again, for Zakai Ziegler, why does he care? Kennedy Chandler, why does he care?
Exactly.
It's a nothing.
Yeah, and there's no media. Those guys aren't answering any questions about it because you're right. There's nothing for them to answer. They don't know. You said it best. They were in middle school when Rick Barnes was coaching that.
Well, the other thing too is like, and again, I don't know anything about Texas's administration, but I know they've had some turnover. Are any of the people that got rid of Rick still there at Texas?
Oh, they're
so
gone.
like, I think
the building
trying to prove that person wrong.
Yeah, the only thing
like,
that's the same is the building. Literally, the only thing that's the same is the building. There's not an administrator there. There's some donors there that Rick knows, obviously, but in terms of administrators, there's nobody there that had anything to do with Rick Barnes being there or Rick Barnes no longer being there.
There'll be a lot of rich guys that want to shake his hand and find him Friday night that he was really good friends with and still is really good friends with. But yeah, the admin, like Mac Brown, he and Mac Brown were great friends. Mac Brown's been gone for years. He and what's the baseball coach's name? Augie.
Yeah,
Augie Garrido.
Yep.
They were great friends. He's been gone for years. It's just a total turnover from people that he associated his time there with.
Did you just say Haka Burrito?
No.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. It said 502 Gateway. My bad.
Rob was with the correct pronunciations, unlike myself. All right. Sam also wants to know: is the quarterback recruiting board as simple as whoever jumps in the boat first to get that spot?
Yes, I think so, but I still think Nico's the top of the board. I do think there's a board. It's not like it's like, well, any of these three would work. We'll take the first one. I think if Vizzini wanted to get in, I don't think Tennessee would turn him away. But they're also not, they know he's not in a super rush, so they're not, going, hey, get in. They want to see how things play out with Nico and what happens with Dante Moore. But I think Nico's clearly the top guy on their board.
AP, what happened with the kid at NBA? Did he just not have a great year?
Marcel.
Yeah, he's just down the list. He's not a huge kid. He's just real skinny. I think he's going to put on a lot of weight to play at this level in this league.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Reed too is he's never gone 100% football. He continues to play basketball. Plays a lot of summer AAU basketball, so he doesn't do as much of the 7-on-7 circuit stuff and all those types of things as well. Obviously, he's going to be a Power 5 guy in my opinion, but not at the top. Not at the top of Tennessee's board, and I'm not sure at the top of a lot of people's board in the SEC right now. The kid out of Detroit, Austin, that was going to get interesting because Notre Dame jumped in the fray this week with him, which is a new challenge that wasn't there, a week or so ago. That one's going to be you're gonna have to win a lot of battles over Big Ten schools that are much closer to his home in Detroit if he's going to make his way all the way to the South. So we'll see if Tennessee can get him on campus. They've not been able to do that yet, even though he likes Tennessee and communicates with them regularly. He's not been to Tennessee's campus at this point. All right, next question. Does the university have a plan for ticketing the orange and white game if it's to be played in Nissan Stadium? Giving previous attendance numbers, it's possible there will be more in attendance than seats in the stadium. Given the game is usually free admission, was curious as to how this would be handled. I don't know the logistics of all of it. The date is the date's a little bit different. You had Austin, you had that, I guess, in the chat or earlier on the board earlier this week. Because of things going on at Nissan Stadium, if Tennessee's going to play in Nashville, it appears they're going to play in the middle of spring practice, not at the end of spring practice, which is unusual. Obviously, that's going to cost Tennessee money to use Nissan Stadium. I'm sure they would do free attendance there. But how interested is everybody in Nashville with everything that's going on to come see Tennessee on a Saturday in March or early April, excuse me. I guess it would be Masters weekends, kind of what it's looking like right now. How interested are a lot of people in coming to see that? How does that all get worked out? We're heading into February. There still feels like a lot of logistics to get done there, Austin.
Yeah, great job putting on Masters weekend.
AP won't be there.
Terrible decision. Yeah, I mean, it is odd. Like, I mean, you would play this spring game and then come back and have 2 more weeks of spring practice, in which you would probably have major scrimmages that actually matter more than the spring game after the spring game.
Yeah, I think AP, this might be the beginning of Brent Hubbs' most fervent wish that the end of spring games.
A lot of them around the country.
I think we take it to King.
Take it to King College? What do you take it to King what?
King College or Milligan, or where did we go that time? Milligan? Was it
Milligan? Milligan. They don't have a football stadium at Milligan. Hey, those fine people at Milligan were terrific to deal with up there for 3 days while Derek Dooley took his team to football camp up there while the facility.
Wasn't that the Rick Rogers up there?
Rick Rogers was up there. Absolutely, he was.
He was hitting up PRs and the Planet up there in Johnson City.
I think that was the only time during practice we might have seen and witnessed Derek Rogers, Justin Hunter, and Cordell Patterson all on the field ready to go at that point. Because I think from that point on, it changed a good bit.
But right. Sal Sunseri blocked them all down, though.
Yeah, he had it a lockdown on the soccer field at Milligan. All right, Reverend Blue Jeans wants to know who impressed you the most at Junior Day.
I love the way Grayson Howard looks. Really, I think Big Burley looks every bit the part. The linemen look good. It's hard not to get the comparisons with Brandon Burlsworth if you're, the Pendleton kid from North Carolina because he's got the glasses.
Good looking kid though, physically.
He is a good looking. Again, Ethan Davis, man. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, like if you're a Tennessee fan, you saw that kid, it'd be hard not to get excited because I mean he is a really good looking kid. Now, with that said, I'll be shocked if this thing don't get squirrely sometime. I mean, he committed so early and. Somebody's going to come hard after him. Does that change kind of his thought process? We'll see. But he's very active for Tennessee on Twitter. And a lot of that, I think, will depend on, too, who Tennessee gets at the quarterback position and what kind of rapport he has with them.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. If you're Tennessee, you're trying to
if you land a guy like Nico, I think that helps your cause to hold on to him long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Tennessee, you're trying to get him on campus as often as you can, Ethan Davis, just to continue to build that relationship there. All right, a few more recruiting questions here. Brew McCoy, happening? I know we will know by the end of the week regardless. Was he the backup plan for Isaiah Nair?
I wouldn't say the backup plan because, I mean, I think there was a scenario where they might have taken both. But I think that, if you can get the stuff cleared at USC and you're able to land Brew McCoy, he's a nice pillow to land on when you lost Nair. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say backup plan.
When do you think spring practice is going to start?
The week after spring break. So like the week of the 21st of March.
Okay. Your early thoughts on numbers for the 23 class. How many at each position do you see as of now? I don't know each position. I think they'll go heaviest offensive line because I think they have a great need there on the offensive line. I think you could see them go anywhere from 4 to 6 on the O-line, Austin. They obviously have to have a quarterback. They've got to have a running back. And then you can't get enough defensive players with where this program is right now. If any of you were able to watch the Polynesian Bowl and did you see Taven Jackson play? Haven't been able to find a replay and wasn't staying up to midnight to see it kick off. I did not see the game. I know in talking to some people, they felt like he threw the ball pretty doggone well over there during practice. I don't put a ton of stock, Rob, in the games itself. It's more about kind of what the practices look like, how guys perform versus the game. But the good news for Tennessee is Taven Jackson's on campus.
Man, I didn't see the game either. I saw a couple clips. But and I'm with you. I mean, we've both been doing enough of those things where the games are just it's a trying to think of a polite way of saying it. I mean, it's not very organized. I mean, you got strange kids that have practiced here 3 or 4 days that are out there trying to play football. So, but I mean, I'm telling you, watching the kids huddle film. I know he plays in a primitive high school system. I'm pretty high on it, and I'm not a quarterback guru or anything. And that's a position where it's boom or bust. But I'm going to be surprised if that kid's not a good player.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the best thing that happened to him was Hendon Hooker returned, and there's no pressure on this kid in year one. He can just kind of just learn, set back, just kind of figure things out, and then we'll see what happens going into what would be his second year on campus. I think it's huge that he has no expectations, and he's going to be sitting there in the 3-hole behind Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's what you want that position to be, is you want to develop there. Hopefully he has the patience to develop. We know how challenging that can be with everything in the transfer portal, but he is not going to get thrown to the fire, which I think is important for where he's at right now, making that adjustment from that offensive system to what Josh Heupel wants to do.
And then you likened him to like a combination of like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Dan Marino, and John Elway, right, Hubs?
I would throw Montana in there just for his savvy in critical game situations. If I were.
By the way, the Joe Montana 6-part thing, there's 4 parts in on Peacock. Really, really good documentary this far.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying to create all kinds of issues on the podcast here. All right.
AP, what's the percentage that you're going to finish that Joe Montana documentary? What percentage we put on it?
It's 100%. I'm just going to need the other two.
Will you finish it
episodes
before
drop.
Will you finish it before the drop ad deadline for the spring semester?
No, because they won't be adding both of them before then. But I will finish Ozark later tonight. First 7 episodes of the 4th and final season.
Jeez Louise. All right. E. Schaefer 92 wants to know, is offensive tackle over the next few years a position of concern? Yes, it's always a position of concern. Grant is obviously going to be a tackle, but where does Addison Nichols project? Seems like they have way more projected guards on the roster than tackles.
I think Addison Nichols projects as a right tackle and or guard. Just depends on, how well he picks it up. I don't think he's a left tackle because I don't think he's long enough, but I think he can play right tackle.
Yeah, and Mincy's a guy that you need to come on and be a player for you. And Rob, I think if you're Tennessee, when you look where Darnell Wright's at and you look at what you're trying to find at right tackle, taking another tackle body as a transfer in the spring, at the end of spring, if you can get one, seems like essentially a must for Tennessee. Or you're going to have a freshman as one of your top 4 tackles.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially if it's a guy that's got multiple years left, without question, take another tackle. I mean, especially a left tackle type if you can find one, which not easy. You just referenced.
It is certainly not. And Tennessee's obviously focusing on tackle bodies in this next recruiting class. All right, following next question from CFF. I'm really confused about NIL. Does a firm like Spire raise funds for only one team? Does the coach or the sports group determine how much money a player gets? Does a coach tell a player how much he'll be paid when he makes an offer? Do you think there will be a lot of negotiations between the player and the school to determine the final amount? No, there's not negotiations between the school and the player. It is handled with the collective or the sports group, like Spire is how that's being done. And that's the way it goes. And those groups work for one school. I mean, there's a reason that those are in college towns. All right. I mean, the group in Austin, Texas is not working for Texas Tech or not helping Baylor out. I mean, they're there and set up in place to help the University of Texas.
But just to clarify, they're not working for Tennessee.
No.
They're working for Tennessee's interest.
Right. Not on behalf or not working for, but obviously they have their interest is in with the University of Tennessee, just like the group their interest is in the University of Texas, the one at Texas A&M. That group in College Station is working with the interest of Texas A&M in mind.
And the thing is, like, when a donor gives money to a collective, whether that's at Tennessee or Vanderbilt or wherever, they can specify, hey, and that happens. Hey, I want it to go to women's basketball, or I want it to go to baseball, or I want it only to go to football, or I don't care where it goes.
Or I want it to go to player X even.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do things, certainly do things like that. Vol Rick, I apologize if you've already answered this, but I have questions concerning scholarship numbers. Do you believe that UT will be near the 85 scholarship limit going into the fall of 22 if they can get the right players? If they won't be around 85, would that be because they have self-imposed scholarship reductions in 2022, or couldn't we bring in that many players due to the limit of 25 and 7 in the portal limit? Thanks.
Tennessee will be at 85 in the fall, right, Hubs?
Or
if they're able to get enough transfers, they'll be at 85 in the fall.
Yes, I think Tennessee will be between 80 and 85, and if the right transfers are out there and they want to use those, then they're going to be there. I think that is Tennessee's plan. I think the goal has been to get to do the Band-Aid, rip the Band-Aid off on the self-imposement, and get that out of the way and done, as they've referred to it, as a speed bump, and get it out of the way and not bleed it out over a 2 or 3 year period to get it done. So I expect that Tennessee will be pushing the 85, if not at 85, when they get into August. Pine Mountain Vol wants to know, what is the one thing that Heupel needs to improve on this off season? Rob, I'll start with you. What would you like to see the next step for Josh Heupel as Tennessee's head coach?
I mean, aside from get better players, I would have to really look at the numbers, the PFF numbers. However, I would like to see them, I think, use the middle of the field more in the passing game. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's, I mean, because I do not have the data, the numbers sitting right here in front of me. But I think I don't think they utilize that enough. And I'm talking about in between 10 and 20 yards, and maybe it's a personnel thing, at wideout, that as opposed to a philosophy thing. And that's kind of a nitpick. And again, maybe the numbers may not support my assumption, but I didn't think they went really heavy there.
I wonder if that, I'm with you, and I wonder if that changes with Jalen Hyatt in the middle because of his length and speed. I wonder if he stretches the field a little bit differently than Velus Jones does down the middle because of his frame and everything. I wonder if he can stretch it a little more vertically in the middle of the field. We'll see. I think for me, I think offensively they've got to be better in the red zone, scoring touchdowns. Short yardage are things that they can work on there. Off the field, in terms of managing his locker room and managing his roster, establishing a culture. I don't know that there's anything he needs to jump out and improve on there, because I think that's probably the best thing that they got done, and he did this past year. So just some nitpicky things. Look, here's the thing: everybody in the conference is going to spend the offseason trying to determine how to handle Josh Heupel's offense, because they moved the ball against everybody. 5 trips in the red zone, I think, against Georgia. So everybody, all defensive coordinators, are going to look at Josh Heupel's offense. How do we defend it better in year 2? What's Tennessee's counter going to be to that? How do they grow overall offensively in year 2? Volunteered 87, Rob. I have no problem with Thompson Bowling, but since renovations are on the top of the mind all the time, what would be the next 1 or 2 significant upgrades you would expect in there, even if it's 5 years down the road? Where would be the next change in Thompson Bowling Arena?
I don't know if I would call this an upgrade. To me, I think it's too big. It's not 10,000 seats too big, but I would like to see them do something, where they made like a, in one of the upper one side of the upper deck, make kind of like a seating area, the food court type something. It's just, when Kentucky's good, when Florida's good, when Auburn's good, you might get 22,000 people in there, but that's the exception to the rule. And if you get, and I'm not saying make it a 12,000 seat arena, but if you're a 16,000 seat arena, you're still bigger than everything except for Rupp and Arkansas in the league, and it's a big time environment. I would like to see them reduce capacity a little bit, and but do so in a way that that brought some amenities to the arena.
Yeah, I think if you're Danny White, that's your next step, is to create some more amenities. There's a lot of open space in that arena underneath, floor level back behind that. There's some areas there. There's obviously those concourses are really wide. You don't want to make those to where you can't travel through them, but you can do some things to create some more amenities for your fans. And I'm with you. I mean, I don't know if you go in with more suites on the other side, but if you do something just to create it, again, more things, more offerings to the fan base there.
I mean, Auburn. I want to say Auburn seats 12,000, and it's a zoo.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't suffer because they don't have 20,000 people in there, and they would never have 20,000 people in there, except when Kentucky came to town, or if Florida or Tennessee was ranked in the top 5.
Yep.
You don't have to have a huge arena in college basketball to have a great environment.
No, get your student seating right, get your band area right. That can be distracting and a problem for other teams, and then create some amenities for your fans for sure. Random football question here. Jim Harbaugh coaching at Michigan in 2023. I'm not sure he's back. I think he may end up in the NFL. I really do. I didn't think that a month ago, but I think there's a real chance he ends up with one of these NFL jobs when it's all said and done.
Well, if I was him, that's what I would want to do, especially if your passion is to win a Super Bowl, because you got Michigan to the playoff. See, had he not gotten them there, his time would have been labeled as such a colossal failure. But he's got multiple 10-win season. He has a chance to go out getting them to the playoff in his final year, beating Ohio State finally, winning the Big Ten. It just makes sense to ride out on a high and head back and try to go win a Super Bowl.
And I think in a lot of ways, the NFL game is easier from a head coaching standpoint than the college game is, with all the changes in the college game right now.
You don't. I don't know why anybody would. I mean, if I had the worst NFL job in the league, I'd rather have that than be at Alabama.
By the way,
just so I wouldn't have to recruit.
Yeah, and the worst NFL job in the league next year might be the New Orleans Saints job, because their salary cap is so upside down. That's going to be an ugly scene for what that roster looks like, which, by the way, is probably a pretty good reason why the head coach walked away earlier this week. Urban Meyer ever coaching again?
No,
I think he's done as well.
No.
And then who was the home run coaching hire in your mind over the past 5 years that ended up being a bust? Personally, I thought Scott Frost would have Nebraska at 8+ wins, and I thought Chip Kelly would kill it in California. I'll give him Scott Frost. I thought Scott Frost going back to Nebraska was the absolute right get for Nebraska. He understood Nebraska. He was successful at UCF. I thought that was a great move for Nebraska there. I'm surprised Justin Fuente didn't have some more success at Virginia Tech when he left Memphis there. Those are a couple of guys that jump out to me. The Chip Kelly thing, that doesn't totally surprise me. But
he's so weird.
Yeah, he's just odd. But I thought Scott Frost would win at Nebraska.
I did not. I just thought Nebraska was a terrible job. I mean, I thought it was a great hire for them, but it's such a hard job. When was Harbaugh hired? I mean, how long has that been? Because that's the one that's, to me, has been the biggest. Looked like the biggest home run maybe ever in college football.
Yeah, you're right.
And he's not a bust, but I certainly didn't. I certainly thought he would do more.
Yeah, he's not hoisted a trophy at this point in time. All right, Austin, we'll close it out here with a couple of questions surrounding the football team. Anybody else can jump in here as well. How big of a difference does Young make on the pass rush, helping out the DBs next year in year 2? And will Tyler Barron be a defensive end? How much could that help? Do you think he's?
I think that Tyler Barron's definitely a defensive end next year, and I think that Byron Young has a real chance to take a nice solid leap in year 2. I thought he really come on from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I just thought he was way more active and way better overall.
What would you say is the most desperate need on this team to add in the spring from the transfer portal? Rob, Give me your top 2. I know you could say every position. Give me your top 2.
I would say wide receiver, linebacker.
Austin?
I'm going secondary and outside receiver, because I think you still got to score points. So I'll go outside receiver. I think they can mask it on the offensive line, and then continue to develop guys. But I think they need an outside guy, and I think they need help in the secondary.
Yep.
Because it looks like Banks is going to be back, and it looks like Juju may be back. So linebacker is not nearly as big of a need for me as it would be.
Yeah, it's still a need, but as I think based on what we saw out of Tennessee secondary in the bowl game, corner, and then you're right, you got to score points. So I'm going both of you guys outside wide receiver as well. Is Williams starting by the 5th week of the season on offense? I just see him as a total package player, a Ronnie Brown type player. I got to see this guy in a college game. I mean, he's built well, looks the part, but I'm not ready to anoint him anything at this point in time. I think Jabari Small's probably got a pretty good chip on his shoulder. We'll see how much he improves in this system in year 2, and we'll see how much weight Jalen Wright puts on and what he looks like. So we'll see what happens when it goes from there. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Smoky Mountain Organics Volquest.com mailbag podcast. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast every week right here on Volquest.